There's something dangerous about constantly needing to be liked. It sounds harmless. Who doesn't want to be accepted? But look closer. When you make approval your currency, you start trading pieces of yourself just to fit in. You become a filtered, watered-down version of who you were meant to be. Imagine this. You walk into a room, and before you speak, you're already calculating what to say. You bite your tongue. You smile when you don't want to. You say yes when everything in you is screaming no. And why? Because you fear being misunderstood. You fear disapproval. You fear not being liked. But that's not confidence. That's survival. And you weren't born to survive the room. You were born to walk into it with presence, grounded, clear, unshaken. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is your wake-up call. A moment to stop shrinking for comfort. A moment to stop apologizing for your truth, your standards, your voice. Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need another agreeable man. It needs men who stand tall even when they stand alone. By the end of this video, you won't just understand why you need to stop needing to be liked. You'll feel ready to reclaim the parts of yourself you buried just to be accepted. Let's begin. Part 1. The story of Daniel, a man who forgot himself. Let me tell you about a man I once knew. Let's call him Daniel. On the outside, Daniel was the kind of guy everyone liked. The life of the party, the guy who always said yes, the one you could count on no matter what. He smiled at strangers, nodded at opinions he didn't agree with, and laughed at jokes that weren't funny, just to avoid the awkward silence that comes with honesty. If someone needed help moving, Daniel was there. If someone needed an emotional sponge for their chaos, Daniel soaked it all in. And when a girl he was secretly in love with told him, "You're such a good friend," he'd smile and say, "I'm just happy to be in your life." Instead of being bold and revealing his real intentions, everyone loved Daniel. Except Daniel. What no one saw was the version of him behind closed doors, drained, hollowed out, and quietly angry. He'd lie in bed wide awake at night, wondering why he always felt like a ghost. He was everywhere for everyone, and yet somehow invisible. His truth had no voice. His standards had no spine. And over time, he forgot who he even was. But here's what broke him. One evening, after another empty interaction where he swallowed his opinion to keep the peace, Daniel looked at himself in the mirror. And for the first time, he didn't recognize the man staring back. He whispered, "Why am I like this?" And that whisper hit like a brick. Daniel realized something terrifying. He was addicted to being liked. Addicted to approval. And that addiction had a cost. It had stolen his confidence. It had stolen his boundaries. It had stolen he himself. The saddest part? He thought being agreeable made him a good man. But it only made him forgettable. He had become a background character in his own life. Now here's why this matters to you. Because there's a good chance you've been Daniel. Maybe you still are. Maybe you're so busy trying to avoid judgment that you've never actually told the world who you really are. If that hits somewhere deep, don't look away. What Daniel did next is the difference between living a life of quiet resentment and stepping into unapologetic freedom. And that shift begins right here. Let's go deeper. Part 2. The first truth. Being liked is not the same as being respected. Most men don't know the difference between being liked and being respected. And that confusion is ruining their lives. You've been conditioned since childhood to be agreeable. You were told to be nice. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. So you smile when you don't want to. You say yes when you mean no. You downplay your truth because someone might not like it. And for a while it works. People like you. But here's the truth. Being liked means you're safe. Being respected means you're real. Being liked means you conform. You blend in. Being respected means you stand for something, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Especially then. The most respected men in history, they weren't people pleasers. They didn't soften their values to avoid tension. Marcus Aurelius didn't lead Rome by asking everyone how they felt. He led with clarity, integrity, stoic strength. And yes, not everyone liked him, but everyone respected him, and no one ignored him. Now let me give it to you straight. The man who chases approval becomes invisible. People can smell it, that desperate need to be accepted, that hesitation, that apology baked into every sentence. It doesn't earn admiration. It earns indifference, or worse, quiet contempt. Because people don't respect what's always bending. They respect what stands. If you're always explaining yourself, if you keep apologizing for having standards, if you're adjusting your personality to match the room, then you're not earning respect. You're performing for scraps of validation, and it's killing your self-worth. Here's what changes that. A man who respects himself doesn't need permission. He doesn't fear silence. He doesn't shrink in the face of tension. He can say, "This is who I am. This is what I believe. And if it bothers you, you're free to leave." That man, he's rare. And because he's rare, people remember him. So if you've been chasing likability your whole life, ask yourself this. Would you rather be temporarily approved or permanently respected? Because the moment you choose self-respect over approval is the moment your life begins to change. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. Because there's another uncomfortable truth that might just set you free. Stay with me. Part 3. Apologies can be a form of self-rejection. Let's get one thing straight. Not all apologies are wrong. If you do something wrong, take ownership. That's strength, not weakness. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the quiet, constant habit of apologizing for who you are. The kind that hides in everyday conversations. The kind that slowly convinces you you're not enough. Apologizing for your personality, your masculinity, your boundaries, your values, your ambition, your truth. It sounds small, but every time you do it, you chip away at yourself. When you say you talk too much, or that you're sorry you're not fun at parties, or that you're not into meaningless flings, what you're really saying is this. You're uncomfortable with who you are. You're telling the world, I'm a little too much, or maybe not enough, so let me shrink a little to make you more comfortable. And that's self-rejection. Do it enough times, and it becomes a reflex. An emotional survival mechanism. You lower your energy, dull your edges, and hide your real voice just to fit into a space that was never meant for you. But here's the truth. Powerful men don't apologize for being who they are. They don't over-explain. They don't try to soften themselves for fragile people. They don't twist their truth into something more palatable. They don't perform. They're just solid, unapologetic, grounded and direct. That kind of presence is rare. Here's your shift. Stop apologizing, start stating. You don't need to say sorry for being intense, driven, quiet, bold, different, or principled. Those aren't flaws. Those are features. Don't say you're sorry for not partying. Just say you don't party. Don't say sorry for being blunt. Say you speak directly. Don't say sorry for not being available. Just be unavailable. Full stop. This isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's about showing up without apology in your full form and letting the world deal with it however it wants. Because every time you reject yourself for the sake of being accepted, you lose a little more of your fire. And every time you choose to stand in your truth without flinching, you reclaim it. Respect begins the moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself. Let that sink in. And in the next part, we'll talk about the hidden cost of trying to be everything to everyone, and why silence is sometimes your most powerful weapon. Keep watching. Part 4. Not everyone is supposed to like you. This might sting a little, but lean in. You are not for everyone. And not only is that okay, it's necessary. The more you try to make everyone like you, the more you dilute what actually makes you you. You become vanilla in a world that was waiting for fire. Trying to be universally liked is like trying to be water in a world full of people who prefer wine, coffee, or soda. You'll always be too bland, too neutral, too forgettable. Now here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you stand for something, someone will disagree. The moment you say what you really think, someone will get offended. The moment you stop people-pleasing, someone will leave. And all of that is proof that you're finally becoming someone. You don't get respect by being everything for everyone. You get it by being one thing, fully and unapologetically. Your job is not to be liked. Your job is to be real. to live aligned, to stop performing and start existing, fully present, fully authentic. Because something powerful happens when you stop chasing universal approval. You create space for real connection, the kind that doesn't require masks, scripts, or constant emotional shape-shifting. You'll lose people, yes, the ones who only liked the version of you that made them comfortable. But the people who matter, the ones who see the real you and choose to stay, those people are rare, and those are the only ones worth keeping. Here's the paradox. When you stop needing to be liked, people start respecting you, and some will even love you more, because you're no longer bending, you're standing, and people may not like everything about you, but they'll know exactly where you stand. And that kind of clarity is magnetic. The world doesn't need another agreeable man. It needs men who are whole. Men who've made peace with the fact that rejection is part of authenticity, that being misunderstood is part of being bold. So stop chasing universal acceptance. It doesn't exist, and it never mattered. Build yourself into a man so aligned, so clear, so grounded, that only the right ones stay. Because that's all you ever needed. And in the final part, we talk about the moment it all shifts, when you stop seeking validation and finally start leading your life from within. Keep watching. Part 5. The story of the day he stopped apologizing. Let me tell you about a client I once worked with. We'll call him Jay. Jay was a creative, sharp guy, but he had one flaw. He always apologized for his ambition. If he talked about his goals, he'd laugh nervously and downplay them. If he dressed well, he'd shrug it off like it wasn't intentional. If he disagreed with someone, he'd quickly backpedal to avoid confrontation. One day he told me, "I don't want to come off as arrogant." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You're not arrogant. You're afraid of being seen." That hit him hard. So I gave him a challenge. Go 7 days without apologizing for your preferences, passions, or personality. Not once. At first, it felt unnatural, but by day 4, something shifted. He started saying things like, "Yeah, I'm building something big. That doesn't work for me. I stand by what I said." By day 7, people were responding differently. They leaned in. They listened. They respected him. He wasn't a new person. He was finally being himself. Months later, Jay told me, "I didn't become confident by changing who I was. I became confident by stopping the apology tour." His life changed not because he added something new, but because he removed the need to be liked. And that's where the real power lives. So here's the truth. If you keep apologizing for who you are, the world will keep believing you should. But the moment you stop, the moment you draw the line and say, "This is me. I'm done performing," everything shifts. You start speaking with clarity. You start acting with conviction. You start walking into rooms without shrinking. Being liked is a drug. It feels good temporarily, but it weakens you over time. Being respected? That stays. That builds. That liberates. You weren't put on this earth to be everyone's favorite. You were put here to be free. So let them misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them walk away. You don't need to be liked. You need to be real. Because when you finally stop apologizing for who you are, you become a man no one can manipulate, no one can shame, and no one can control. That's the kind of man the world needs more of. And if you made it this far, I want to hear from you. Have you ever caught yourself apologizing for who you are? Drop your story in the comments. Because this community, we don't perform here. We own who we are. Be unapologetic. Be respected. Be free.